Hello everyone. Let's do this assertion reason question. In equation, delta G of the reaction is equal to minus nFEcell. The value of delta G of the reaction depends on N. Is that true? It is true. First of all, we need to understand that here it is mentioned as non-standard conditions, isn't it? We know that delta G standard is equal to minus nFEcell standard. That is for standard conditions, which means 1 molar solution, pressure is 1 bar or 1 atm, and the temperature is 298.15 K. That is for standard conditions. So here it is mentioned as non-standard conditions, which means to find out the Ecell, we always have to use the Nernst equation, isn't it? Because under non-standard conditions, Ecell is equal to Ecell standard minus 2.303 RT by NF times log Q. If it is under standard conditions, Q will be 1. If Q is equal to 1, then under standard conditions, Ecell will be equal to Ecell standard. But only under non-standard conditions, we use the Nernst equation. So, the first statement is true because it depends upon the number of electrons transferred. N is the number of moles of electrons transferred in the balanced redox reaction. F is the Faraday constant, and the Ecell we will find out through Nernst equation. That is also a constant value because it is an intensive property. Both Ecell as well as Ecell standard are intensive properties, isn't it? So therefore, it depends only on the number of moles of electrons transferred in the balanced redox reaction. So therefore, assertion is correct. And now the next one, Ecell is an intensive property, delta G is an extensive property. Is that correct? Yes, it is correct. Why delta G is an extensive property? Because if you double the concentration, then the free energy released will be doubled, isn't it? On the contrary, Ecell will remain as an intensive property. So therefore, reason is also correct. Let me put it this way. When we say Ag plus is gaining an electron and becoming Ag, the standard reduction potential is equal to plus 0.80 volt. Now, when we multiply with the 2, let us say 2 Ag plus gaining 2 electrons and becoming 2 Ag, we do not multiply this value with the 2. It is once again the same. So therefore, the standard reduction potential is intensive property, which means that Ecell standard value we calculate is also an intensive property. Both Ecell as well as Ecell standard is always an intensive property, whereas delta G and delta G standard, they are extensive property, whereas Ecell and Ecell standard are intensive property, which means that both A and R are true and R is the correct explanation of A. Therefore, option 1 is correct.